Honorable Senators, I wish to draw your attention to the presence in the gallery of Bob Cordy, Senator Cordy's husband, Allison Ripley and Michelle Brown, Senator Cordy's daughter, Patricia Earn, Senator Cordy's sister, and Dennis Earn, Senator Cordy's brother-in-law. On behalf of all senators, I welcome you to the Senate of Canada. Senator Cordy, it's your day.
Thank you very much. This is the tough part. It was fun listening. I think it was more fun listening. Thank you all so much. It just makes my heart sing today to listen to everybody. I just want to talk about some of the things. Pierre, you spoke about, before I start my actual speech, I'll do this. You said that you don't ever stop teaching when you're a teacher. And everybody used to ask me when I first joined the Senate, like, what's the difference between teaching and being in the Senate? And my answer always used to be, the kids are just bigger. So I think you hit it right on the button, Pierre. I think you knew what it was. And Mark, I'd forgotten about the Committee on Aging, chaired by Sharon Carstairs, and it was great work that we did. I feel like I was just looking out for my future interests when I joined that group, because we came up with some great recommendations. And Senator Plett, and one thing that Senator Plett said in maybe different words that I'm going to say, that is really important for everybody. And we did, Bob and I and Dawn and Betty used to golf. We had places in the villages and we used to golf frequently. And we were like this far and this far, Dawn on the right and me on the left. But we used to have great times golfing and then either go out to dinner in a restaurant or go to one of our houses. And when we went to one of our houses, I'm not a scotch drinker, but I think we went through quite a bit of scotch at our house when you would be there. But we had lots of fun. And I think it's really important what Dawn said. We can be on the far right and the far left, or most of us somewhere in between. Please stick to your political beliefs, but remember that we can still be friends at the end of the day, or we can have golf games or a drink after a golf game. And I think that's really important, because sometimes we get so intense about what our beliefs are that we forget that it is just a belief. It's a political belief. And what makes Canada best is when we come together and we make compromises and do what's best for our country. Raymond, and I have to say you spoke a lot about me being the other female to work with. And I always, and our offices were side by side. So we would often sit down early in the morning for coffee or late in the day. And it was always nice. Nothing against the males. This is not a criticism. But it was really nice to have another female leader when we went into our meetings. And Scott, you would have made a great teacher. All those comments. And it's interesting when you talked about traveling too far and too long. And I have to tell you, like the thought of spending another winter flying back and forth from Nova Scotia, after spending more time with my family in Nova Scotia, traveling back and forth would have been another great reason for me deciding that I would retire early. So now I will actually speak to my prepared marks. And it's not an hour and a half long, you will all be very glad to know. Honourable Senators, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today on the traditional and unceded land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Senators, I want to thank you so very much for your kind words. I will read them over and over again, and I will probably send them out to people to read them because they have really touched my heart. Thank you for your best wishes since I gave notice that I would be taking early retirement. Although I think very few places would consider that 74 would be early retirement. I was the 848th senator to be appointed to this chamber, and thank you, Senator Veroni, for that bit of trivia. And if you want to know when your number was, you just check with him. He has all of us down on his list. That number since Confederation, which is only slightly over 1,000 senators appointed since Confederation, should make us all understand just how fortunate we have been to be chosen by our respective prime ministers to serve in this chamber. I want to begin by paying tribute and saying a huge thank you to so many who have made our jobs easier. Our protective services personnel always work to keep us safe. They are professionals, and they always remain calm. I much appreciated their calmness and efficiency a few weeks ago. For those of us who were on Parliament Hill when shots were fired, you understand the bravery and the dedication of our protective staff in a whole different way. Our administrators and support team are led by our clerk, Shayla Anwar, and they provide support to senators in so many ways, along with chamber operations and procedure office, translators and technicians, whose jobs increased significantly during COVID. To the usher of the Black Rod, who always has a friendly hello and a smile, I thank you. To our Senate pages, our brilliant young people from across our country, you make such a positive difference here in the chamber. The Senate has the finance employees, communication employees, human resources employees, many who work behind the scenes. We know you by name, but not always by face. A thank you to all of you. Thanks to all who work behind the scenes to make our Senate function. You keep our buildings safe and clean, and you are appreciated. Thank you to our bus drivers who drive us from early morning until after midnight. You are so friendly no matter what time of the day it is, morning, noon, or night. You get us to where we are going, and we always have a little chat. And finally, to our Speaker, Senator Gagne, and our Deputy Speaker, Senator Pierre Ringette, thank you for your leadership. When I was sworn into the Senate in June of 2000, the Speaker, Senator Molgat from Manitoba, was not present. So the Deputy Speaker, Senator Rosemarie Loisier-Cool from New Brunswick, presided. It is ironical that today, our Speaker from Manitoba is not able to be with us, and it is another Deputy Speaker from New Brunswick presiding as I get ready for my retirement. Senators, my first staffer was Colette Favreau, who came out of retirement to help me set up my office. Matt Ryan from Cape Breton joined us shortly after, and he has been with me for over 20 years. Susanna Doherty from Newfoundland came to work with me after her graduation from the University of Ottawa 14 years ago. And if you pass her office, you might often hear Susanna humming or singing. Her degree was was in music, and she is an opera singer. Matt and Susanna have been an incredible team, working long hours when needed and offering suggestions when asked, and sometimes when they weren't asked. And we worked really hard in our office, but we laughed hard as well. I will miss you both, and I thank you for being great members of the Dream Team. To staff that I had the privilege of working with as leader of the Progressive Group, Melanie, Heather, Caitlin, David, and Jeremy, for a short while, Jeremy, thank you for your advice, your attention to detail, and for knowing that while we need to work hard in the world of politics, we needed fun times as well. Thank you all. To Bob, the love of my life. We celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary in August. You are my rock and my strongest advocate. Our life has been and continues to be an incredible adventure. To our daughters, Allison and Michelle, who are here today. When I was appointed, Allison had just graduated in May from Mount Allison University, and Michelle had just finished her second year at St. FX. Here you are today, strong, independent women. To our wonderful sons-in-law, Matt Ripley and Will Brown, who are in Dartmouth with our grandsons, Caleb and Cohen Brown, and Luke and Liam Ripley. I love you all. Life has been great, but I am looking forward to being a full-time Nana. My sister Pat and her husband Dennis Hearn are here today, as they were back in 2000. Time has passed very quickly. Honorable Senators, there were about 33 women in the Senate in 2000. When I look around the chamber today, it makes me smile and it makes my heart sing. Appointments were made differently in those days. I got a call from Prime Minister Chrétien's appointment secretary, Percy Down, who told me that I had been shortlisted for a Senate appointment. I met with Senator Down the following week in Nova Scotia, and I was appointed on June 9th, 2000. June is pretty hectic when you're a senator and when you're a teacher. When I finished teaching on June 8th, I couldn't tell anyone other than my husband and daughters, and of course the school principal, because he had to find a substitute teacher for the rest of June. On Friday afternoon, June 9th, the principal announced to all the students that Mrs. Cordy was going to Ottawa to be a senator. One of the grade 1 students put up his hand and said to his teacher, "I didn't even know she played hockey." By the way, hockey was a pretty big deal at our school because there was a grade 5 student by the name of Sidney Crosby, who was at Colby Village Elementary School. And another, by the way, was I went home after that first week in the Senate and wrote report cards all weekend. Honorable Senators, I was only the third woman from Nova Scotia to ever be appointed to the Senate. The first was Margaret Norrie from Truro. You may know her daughter, Margaret Norrie McCain, who followed in her mother's footsteps of making things better in our country, particularly in the field of early childhood education. She's been a great supporter of my alma mater, Mount St. Vincent University. The second woman was Sister Peggy Butts, my high school principal, a brilliant woman, an activist, known as a rebel with a cross. She couldn't take her seat right away because, as a sister, she couldn't own property. She did have land transferred to her before she was sworn in. Today, we have 3 women from Nova Scotia, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, Senator Mary Coyle, and me. I hope the Prime Minister appoints at least 1 woman, since there will be 2 vacancies in Nova Scotia after Senator Green and I retire. Honourable Senators, I will be forever grateful to former Prime Minister Chrétien for appointing me to the Senate. As a girl growing up in Cape Breton, the oldest of 8 children, it was not something I ever dreamed of or even imagined. Mr. Chrétien appointed many strong women during his years as Prime Minister, women like Landon Pearson, Catherine Colbeck, Sister Peggy Butts, and Sheila Finestone, among others, to the Senate. It was an honour to attend his 90th birthday party this past January. Honourable Senators, I believe we do incredible work at the committee level here in the Senate. I've been fortunate to have been part of many excellent studies. In my few years on the Fisheries Committee, we examined the Aboriginal fishery relating to the Donald Marshall decision, the seal fishery, which was an eye-opener to me, and if you haven't read it, you should. And we studied the Great Lakes fishery. Committee members were very pleased that the Great Lakes will now come under global affairs instead of fisheries, since the Great Lakes are international waters. Some of the reports done by the Social Affairs Committee over the years were on migrant workers, cities, higher education, and mental health. A result of the mental health report was the establishment of the Mental Health Commission of Canada, which was one of our recommendations. I do believe, though, that mandates of committees should be examined. Work was done by the Rules Committee, and it should be considered by the Senate as a whole. The mandate of social affairs, for example, is very broad, meaning we are dealing with a huge number of bills, both government and private members' bills, leaving us with little time to do studies, and certainly not long-term studies. That, I believe, is unfortunate. Senator Housakis, we had quite a bit of excitement as Chair and Deputy Chair of Internal Economy. It certainly was not dull, as we were dealing with what the media referred to as the Senate expense scandal. To say it drew public attention would have been a huge understatement. It was a good thing, Leo, that we worked well together, because our days and our evenings were very long between all of our meetings and between all of the media calls. Honorable Senators, one of my favorite things to do as a senator is to speak to people around the country and tell them about the great work that the Senate of Canada does. I guess that once a teacher, always a teacher. I've spoken to elementary, junior high, high school, and university students, sometimes here in Ottawa, but most often in Nova Scotia. They are very aware of the issues our country is facing, and they are not afraid of voicing their concerns. I believe our future is in good hands. One evening a few months ago, I was speaking to students from the Ottawa area here in our Senate chamber. We were talking about what the Senate does and what senators do and how you become a senator. One young student raised his hand after we've been doing this for a little while. He pointed to the crow's nest up here, to Piero Rose, who was the console operator, and he said excitedly, "But I want to know how I can get his job." Mr. Rose kindly agreed to answer many questions. And this is a good lesson for us to perhaps include other career opportunities available in the Senate when we're speaking to students. And I want to thank publicly Mr. Rose for being so kind and so generous with his time that evening. Honourable Senators, I've gotten to meet incredible Canadians during my time in the Senate. People like Lonray Tuje-Ajaya from the Sickle Cell Association of Ontario, Rugi Jala, the president of the Sickle Cell Association of Atlantic Canada, and Biba Tinga, the president of the Sickle Cell Association of Canada, who are making a huge, huge difference for those with sickle cell. We've come a long way since I introduced a bill calling June 19th Sickle Cell Awareness Day. Very few people at that time had even heard of sickle cell. Senator Carolyn Stewart-Olson was the friendly critic, and she knew about sickle cell because she had been a nurse in her other life. The bill passed thanks to Carolyn and my MP Darren Fisher, who sponsored the bill in the other place. Senator Meiji has introduced a bill on sickle cell in the Senate. Last week, I introduced a bill on blood disorders, which includes not only sickle cell, but many rare blood disorders. Of course, being a Nova Scotia senator meant looking at legislation and policies and how they would affect my province. And because of my years as an elementary school teacher, I've always had a strong interest in issues related to children and young people. Being from Atlantic Canada, issues related to the military are important to me and to so many people from my province. I was fortunate to become an international vice president of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Because of that, I traveled to defense headquarters in Kabul, Afghanistan, with other executive members from the NATO countries. My brother was stationed at NATO Defense Headquarters in Kabul because he was the logistics person charged with setting up the base in Kandahar. It was an incredible experience to think that two Cape Bretoners, a brother and a sister, were in Kabul, Afghanistan, both on Government of Canada business. I also had the pleasure of serving on the Canada-US Association, and I served with Vance Badaway as co-chair of the Great Lakes Subcommittee. The United States has been our greatest ally, and I believe it is important that we maintain a strong and healthy dialogue between our leaders and our Senate and House colleagues. The Canada-US Association helps to make those meetings possible. To all senators, our parliamentary associations provide great learning experiences. As leader of the Progressive Group, I had the chance to work closely with other leaders. Senator Gold, it wouldn't be worth any amount of money to have your job, but you continue to be a strong leader and a strong advocate for all of us. Thank you. To Senator Saint-Germain and Senator Wu for a short while, to Senator Tanis and to Senator Platt, it was a pleasure working with each of you, or on most days it was. We didn't always want to move in the same direction, and we fought each other for what we believed was best for our group and for the Senate. And that is what leaders should do. We sometimes looked at things differently, but I learned a lot from that experience. Good things. And to Peter Harder, the first government leader in the Senate after the election in 2015, you deserve the very best things in life, Peter, because of your ability to stay calm and to soldier on as the Senate moved in a new direction. And lastly, but most importantly, I want to speak to my group, the Progressive Group. You are an incredible, amazing team. It has been a pleasure working with each of you. We don't always agree with one another, and that's a positive thing. You supported me when I was leader, and the nice thing about a smaller group is that no one's voice gets lost. I have tremendous respect for all of you, because each of you brings different perspectives to our discussions. But more importantly, I will miss all of you. You are without a doubt the dream team, the Senate Olympic team. Thank you for your friendship and for our many serious discussions and our seriously laugh out loud laughter. Honorable Senators, thank you all for the friendship you have shown me during my time in the Senate. We have all been blessed to have been chosen as senators to represent our provinces and our territories. Every region in this great country is different, and it is our job to fight for the people we represent. The Senate does exceptional work, and I have learned so much over the years. But I'm also excited to spend more time in Nova Scotia with my family and my friends. My friends have been very generous when I am unable to attend events or to entertain as often as I would wish. So for the next few months of reconnecting, I'm looking forward to it. To my family, you are my everything. To my Senate family, I will miss you all. Thank you.